So anyway, the demiurge is the. Oh, I'm sorry.
Happy. You know what? It's been a couple weeks, folks. We are in December. It's cold. Our minds might be cold.
Yeah.
Our feelings might be cold. But we're going to broaden your palate and hopefully give you a sense of warmth, whether you fucking like it or not today. Because it's City Make Spence.
Yeah. I was just discussing with Adam and Garret a known heresy called Gnosticism. So that's where we're starting off heretical. That's how we like to do it here.
Getting all sorts of waxing lyrical, spiritual, and spiritual on this Thursday.
We might be getting into a little bit of Detroit City FC heresy today, with maybe some.
We'll mix it in,
opinions that may be washed out here. But sorry,
the thing that has taken the place of religion in my life.
So all of these fun things we're going to be talking about. People might be offended tonight, but you know what? That's life. Deal with it.
Tell you what, if you're offended, we will refund every bit we were paid to do this.
That's right. That's right.
We will give it back.
So, first off, it's been a couple weeks since we last guys gathered before Thanksgiving. Let's start off. The man that I recorded with a latest edition of the cast a couple of days ago that I even chatted with this afternoon before the draw happened of this new cup competition Detroit City is going to be in. Well, not new, period, but new for us. Adam, how are you tonight?
It's a new format, so
yeah.
I'll say that. I'm good, though.
Yeah, but not this, though. This is the same old shit, different time.
We are not innovating.
But you all know who innovates with his words. The man behind me, City Make Spence, Sean Spence. How are you tonight?
I'm okay. Yeah. I made a lot of pizzas today, and I'm ready to talk about football and Gnosticism and how my childhood inoculated me against Christianity.
So unlike our last episode, we're not going to spend 40 minutes at the beginning talk about everything except Detroit City FC and the U.S. soccer. We're going to go straight into the Detroit City stuff. To give you a brief rundown, we're going to focus. There's been some movement that has taken place with Detroit City FC.
Some farewells.
I wouldn't say this is spiritual movement for the new stuff. More like this is actual needed movement. We'll talk about a return that has me feeling things and some thoughts of observations that we've seen, maybe myself more so. We shall see. And two people that have indeed listed farewells and also surroundings. News that came through today for Detroit City FC. News in the W League that we learned more about earlier in the week and what that might mean. That's what you're kind of looking at today, to give people an outline. Will we be scattered along the way? Probably. It's the three of us. We like to have fun and fuck shit up. So, but thank you, as always, for joining us on this wild, wild ride. So, let's begin. So, Detroit City FC has had, to start off this 2025 offseason, as of the time of recording this, 7:41 p.m. Eastern on December the 12th, the year 2024, 3 new additions.
Year of our Lord?
Yep. 2024 for the 2025 offseason, 3 signings that have come in. Unfortunately, for some people in particular, especially maybe in the owners group and some of our communities that now say this in jest, no, none of them have been attacking midfielders or strikers. However, they are pieces that kind of have some importance and roles for said midfielders and strikers. The first person announced as the new signing for Detroit City FC for the 2025 season is defender Shane Wiedt, a central defender who Detroit City fans will have been familiar with Pittsburgh Riverhounds in 2022 and the Sacramento Republic the last 2 years. Somebody who you would expect to see in a center back, whether in the back 3 or potentially in the back 4, maybe filling in for Stephen Devon. Then Morey Doner. 30-year-old Canadian by way of Metropolitan Toronto, Collingwood, I believe to be exact. Somebody who can play right back in a back four, a right wing back in a back three, or back five, and somebody who's been an Ironman for Monterey Bay these last 3 years, played every game in that he's featured, and a goal and a few assists last year. The third signing by way also of Monterey Bay is the second goalkeeper named Carlos that Detroit City has, in the form of Carlos Herrera. We'll talk about him and what we're expecting Carlos to be, especially when you look at our current and our favorite as of the moment, Carlos and Carlos Saldana. But let's start off with the three, gents. Shane Wiedt, Morey Doner, Carlos Herrera. What do you like about these three? What are some issues you might have with some of these signings? And Adam, afterwards, feel free to chime in with what you're seeing too.
Well, Shane Wiedt is the Matt Lewis replacement that we never signed last year. He basically, like, his profile is so similar to Matt. It's kind of freaky, honestly. Like, he, likes the same position. He likes that right center back on the three. He is, like Matt was, a little more adventuresome in terms of his positioning. Like, he likes to kind of step forward when the space is given to him. He's a threat on set pieces. He's good in the air. I think he's a big upgrade at that position. Like, the defense right now looks fucking solid. Like, the thing I wonder about is whether now that we also know that, I'm sorry, I'm kind of going back and forth. We know Michael Bryant has re-signed. We haven't gone to that, but since we're talking about the defense, and I wonder whether Danny has it in mind to try to make Stevie compete for his minutes this year, in a way that he really hasn't at all. I don't know. I would hope not, honestly, because I think that Morey Doner, okay, as a right back, he is a defensive right back. He can do the attacking bit in a supporting role. He can be a wall for 1-2s and spring guys forward, but he doesn't get forward the way like Reese or Matt Sheldon did for us at that position. What he does do is play really solid, man-to-man and zonal defense. He is, he's incredibly reliable, and is really, he's 30, be 31 this year, so he's toward the back end of the prime of his career. But defenders 30, 31, that's not terribly old. The only concern you would have is that he would lose his wheels. But so far it looks like he's a guy who's in good shape and is keeping all his physicality. So really, to me, it looks like that's your starting five on the back line. Alex, Devin, Stevie, Shane, and Morey, probably. And so getting that kind of handled off the jump is that's a lot. I think it's fantastic. I think that the other thing about the Morey Doner, besides the fact that we've got to do TIFO about like doing the donor pun, because like that's just it's right. We actually sell donor in the parking lot. So come on. Anyway, I think that the thing about Morey arriving is that it really does kind of show that they're thinking of Reese as an attacking player now. That he's a guy that he can play a few minutes at wingback, but that's not his primary position anymore. And the third is Carlos Herrera, right? Herrera, he's, if I remember, he's great big.
6'1".
Really? For some reason, I was thinking he was like bigger than
but
that.
He's big body, okay. Broad shouldered. He's got like a good frame.
I'm thinking, okay, the guy I was picturing is not him then. I was picturing the guy who was like 6'6", that we faced. His numbers look okay. He's only gotten he's been kind of a backup keeper. So he hasn't gotten a ton of minutes, and his save percentage was really high last year. It was very low 2 years ago. Does that mean he's improved, or that, he just saw easier shots, or hard to say. But we definitely need a second keeper. We'll see. I think he'll have to do a lot to unseat Carlos Herrera, because he really looked great. I feel like he just beat Nate for the position this year, and it's not like Nate was tragic. He was very good. So
right.
So we look solid defensively. And people keep talking about strikers. I mean, Ben Morris is still here. Connor played well at the end of last year. We kept Jesse El Cedeno. And we've got attacking players. Reese. What we don't have much of is central midfielders. It's Lijop and Dom, I guess. But Dom was not even here, most of last year. So, if you're listening to this and you want to look good in the Facebook group and not like one of the chodes who's like striker every time anyone gets signed, just ask for a central midfielder. Bang. Wow. Now you're one of the cognoscenti. Well done.
God, that's brilliant. Adam, what about you, bud? How are you taking in with these? Is there one that you like out of these three more than any of the other, or?
No, just to kind of echo what Spence was saying about the defense. I mean, it's probably gonna be our best defense since we arrived in USL Championship, our most solid defense. And it never dawned on me that this is the Matt Lewis signing. So thank you, Sean, for mentioning that, because you look back on last season, and he's absolutely right. We never did get that Matt Lewis replacement. We never truly got that Matt Lewis replacement.
Right.
We tried to with Abdi Salim, but unfortunately his hamstring and then his back flared.
Yeah. That was tough. Yeah.
So we finally we finally have that replacement. And the biggest question mark for me isn't analyzing Morey Doner or Shane Wiedt or Carlos Herrera. It's when these signings were made, the first thing that popped in my head was, okay, well, Michael Bryant is going to be gone. They're not bringing back Michael Bryant. That pretty much solidifies it. Right. But lo and behold, I think the day after they announced Morey Doner, they announced Michael Bryant was back. So that's my biggest question right now regarding all of this, is where does Michael Bryant kind of fit into this equation for City going into next season? And also, I mean, I know I'm kind of going back and forth here, Sean. I interesting too what you said about Steven and potentially having him fight for minutes this year, because heading into last year, we never once probably thought that Nate was going to have to fight for minutes.
Right.
And he ended up having to fight for minutes. And in some sense, he lost his job. He lost his starting job at some points.
Right. Yeah. That's what, and if you remember, last year, we weren't thinking about Nate having to fight for minutes, but then Danny brought in a guy from Sacramento that he knew real well, and it was kind of like,
Yeah.
And he knows Shane Wiedt real well.
Yeah.
So that I think that might help Steven a little bit if we could figure out a second lineup that's maybe Shane sliding in the middle and Michael in there, or Michael coming straight in and Shane staying out right, whatever. That's, to me, that is where the Michael Bryant signing makes a lot of sense. Now, I think that there was some bandying about the money. I think he wanted starter money, and they're like, listen, you are not going to be a starter. You are going to be a squad player. And as a squad player, I'm sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
Not just that, top starter money.
Right. Yeah. He wanted to get, he wanted to get paid. And, you don't ask, you don't get. So, I don't think there's going to be any, I think Michael's already over it, They did what they could. They did the op they could to try to, put pressure on, but City shrugged it off, and it's like, all right, well, fair play. Let's move on.
You know what, too, Sean? The thing with Nate is when they brought in Carlos, that was coming off of a season. You're coming off of a 2023 season that wasn't good.
Mm-mm.
And the only reason why we were probably in the playoffs, aside from what's his face scoring for Sacramento that year. Why am I drawing a blank?
The patron saint of candles from the Northern Guard supporters group in October 2023, Russell Cicerone.
Yes, Russell Cicerone. Thank you, Russell, for again getting us into the playoffs in 2023. But Nate was really, really good in 2023. You can argue that he was the only reason why we made it in some sense to the playoffs that year. And yeah, they do bring in Carlos Saldana, and Carlos Saldana plays very well to the point that he ends up earning significant starter minutes. This year, I thought Steven was very, very good as well. I thought this is a great season, I thought, for Steven.
He really back to his best, but better than I'd seen him play.
And so who knows what's happening next?
Always been very good. Yeah,
I think and that's the thing with Danny, and I don't know if this is. I don't know if Trevor is. I don't want to use the word guilty, but for lack of a better term, of being sentimental with his guys. But Danny really doesn't have that sentiment, going back to 2019 or anything like that. And and I know that's a thought that some supporters have is maybe Trevor has had a soft spot for some of these guys. You can't say that so much for Danny because he wasn't here in 2019. He wasn't here.
I mean, I think that for Trevor, liking a guy and keeping him on the squad are entirely disjuncted. Mm-hmm. They don't join at all. And I think that he has rostered guys that he didn't personally like a lot because he knew that they were important on the squad, and and so he I don't think there's any sentimentality happening from Trev. I think he's very, very professional to an almost cold degree when it comes time to make those decisions. Let's put the numbers down. Let me think about what's the next couple of years going to look like for this player. But the other thing about all of this is that it's not really a decision you make necessarily. I don't think they have any reason. They're not edging Steven out. They're just trying to get. And we needed more defensive depth. We shouldn't have to rely on Steve and Devin being Iron Men in order to field a defense.
Totally agree.
And so you're putting more options in there in case that physical drop off that you always worry about starts to become noticeable. And that was what we worried about after 23 was that Stevie looked a step slow. Teams had really started going at him. Running at him, trying to pull, but also we weren't playing well and we were turning the ball over in midfield a lot. So he was, having to turn and run against, the cheetahs in this league. There are athletic players in this league. Yeah. And so, that was very difficult. This year, you didn't see him do that a lot, mostly because the midfield played a lot better. And so we weren't getting their number 9 in a bunch of space, just kind of jinking this way and that while Steven desperately sprints back to position. That just didn't happen. we controlled the games much more, and we're a lot smarter about like our rest defense positioning and things like that. That's where I would say, if you want to talk about the difference between this year and last year in terms of like, what I saw from the coaches, that was what I saw, is that we were very canny. We did not get exposed very often. It kind of reminded me of the way Liverpool's playing with under Arne Slot, where you can see that now obviously they're the best team in the world right now, and they're playing with an incredible amount of confidence, but like you can see that they have an idea of trying to win without doing too much, like
They're
we're gonna get ahead, and then we're just gonna we're gonna see how little energy we can expend. And there were times that we felt like that, down the stretch, where we were just like, we get a couple goals and be like, okay, well, let's just keep the ball. Let's, no reason to get stressed out. And if we can continue that into this next season, I will be delighted. I have my questions because I don't know who they're signing for midfield, and but Lai is a very odd piece to start with. He's got a lot of potential and a lot of ability to do things that are unusual. His ability to carry the ball through midfield is, he's one of the better players in the league at that, like at this point. But he's not a great like pivot guy, and he's, he needs someone playing behind him and probably someone playing in front of him too, to really make that work. And this year he always had that, and it looked pretty good. So we'll see. We'll see. Like the name that shocked me, this is the second time we're saying this, but it was James. James is the name that shocked me, because I feel like positionally and he was very intelligent without the ball. He's pretty clean with it. He did go through a bad period in the middle of the season where he was giving the ball away a ton, and I have a feeling that that stretch is what meant we didn't ask him back, because the position he's in, you really do have to be like beyond belief clean on the ball and accurate with your passing.
I was going to say too, I think something that Adam, you and I talked about this weekend. We've had a month since the playoff exit and some of the things that have taken place. And one thing in particular that I realize is when James had the yellow card accumulation at the end of the season, and he was out against Miami, not a starter in the game against San Antonio, and then you lose Lai Jop, the sports hernia becomes an issue enough where you lose Lai Jop for a game and have that, whether he's had it or he's about to, that procedure he needs to have for it. Big piece like that is out. Danny chooses Ryan Williams over James Murphy to start in that game.
Yeah. And, well, I mean, yeah, there's like, they're different players. I think James, I think Ryan played well positionally down the stretch, but before that period, I didn't think he was as sharp as James in terms of his reading of the game, his positioning, and that, the kind of finding your spot in rest defense and all that. Is a huge part of, because you're not on the ball very much as a defensive midfielder. You're shepherding space. You're trying to like say, you can't come here, try something else. Like that's your. So in that aspect, I thought James was superior to Ryan for most of the season, but it could be that Ryan was just rusty early, like he didn't get a lot of time, and every time we saw him, it was kind of like, oh yeah, Ryan Williams is on this roster. Cool.
Ryan was late getting over here too, wasn't he, Spence?
Yeah. I think he didn't get here really till like the season was underway, basically.
Yeah.
But the thing about Ryan Williams, like, yeah, okay, maybe sometimes he's a little slow to rotate, or he'll get sucked to the ball a little bit in a way that you don't want a guy at that position to do. But man, if you get fouls around the box, like the shit he can do on a dead ball is so valuable.
Delivery on free kicks, yeah.
I mean, like that really, and I think that's what gave him the advantage down the stretch. Was like, okay, well, we are not an explosive offensive team. Like we need to make the most of these set pieces, and with really, I mean, occasionally Maxi would hit a good ball, but a lot of our a lot of our service is pretty feckless, or has been pretty. It's like, the sound like over and over. You're like, oh, it's too high. Sails a little bit, whatever.
And I think that's what also led to Villanueva over Levi's, because Alex eventually trumped Brett in the left-footed delivery too. Because Adam, you and I can have and Sean, from when you've been by us, we often get blessed because we're 10, 15, 20 feet from a corner.
Yeah, you got to watch all the left-footed corners.
Yeah. So Alex was the guy that kind of took over that. One, because he's healthy, and two, because I think, he put the work in to at least give him something for that.
Yeah.
I think for Michael Bryant, one position I am curious about, because a couple of years ago, before Michael took the right wing back, right center back in a back three role or anything like that, Trevor was using him a lot as either a makeshift central midfielder, sometimes even as high as a number 10, where he bagged a goal at Tulsa. Off support striker, he won the penalty that Maxi Rodriguez buried to defeat the Columbus Crew in that U.S. Open Cup. So what I'm wondering here is, perhaps, do we start to see the return of central midfielder Michael Bryant?
Well, I think he's going to go back to the Swiss Army knife role, that he popularized when he first got here, where he just kind of play everywhere. I think we'll probably see more of that. I have my reservations about him as a midfielder. I feel like it's okay for spot things, but I think in this league, if people had if he was starting consistently and people had film on him, they would go at him, and it would be a problem very quickly. Like they would, they just have somebody stand on him, so he couldn't be useful as a pivot, because he's not going to be able to turn against that pressure.
Right.
And he's not the kind of player like Maxi or Lai, who can figure out a way to get around that marking. He's just, that's just not what he does. Like he was a striker, and then he was a defender. So he's a box guy, either box. Yeah. I think, if we don't get in a guy with some size up top, then we could see him, like, late in games, going in as like a head to aim at, the last 15 minutes, down 2 goals, like, got to do something. Nothing's working,
New Yazid Matthews, dare we say.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. But I think, he's also getting a lot of minutes, because I have a feeling we're going to, in defense, I have a feeling we're going to rotate the defense a little more than we're used to. I mean, maybe not, it is, I just think that there have been times that, we've struggled kind of toward the end of the summer, each of the last 2 seasons. And I think some of that is like our defenders will get a little bit gassed once we're, they're playing every minute in the heat. And we, once we hit a couple 2-game weeks, they're starting to feel it, they're not back to 100% when the next game starts. And that grinds you down.
Do you guys remember where Michael was playing when he drew that penalty against Columbus in the Open Cup?
It was like to me, it was a mix between a number 10 and the support striker, because he was one of the highest guys up, and he was ball to get the box, and he's kind of featured when we beat Baby Bulls into the game. That was the end of what became your eventual streak that just ended this year, I think, because you had like a 2-year streak where you literally went to every fucking thing in the world. But we were down 0-0. We couldn't. It felt like we were losing 0-0. And we made late. Francis Etuahane, Billy Forbes, and Michael Bryant, and we put them all high up as kind of attacking like people. And Michael was basically defending by attacking by a high defender, essentially.
Well, I think, right. Like, to me, I think that he was sort of doing he was a guy. We weren't playing positional football at that point. Michael's in the box on either end. If they've got the ball, he runs back, and he's just trying to, it's just chaos ball. And it worked.
Adam, you can also know this too. We were at the owners meeting a couple of weeks ago, and it's something that you kind of mentioned too when we listened to Danny Dicchio talk. You kind of get an idea of the guys that he loves based off of the year that he had in there. And I think it seems like also like within there, like obviously raving about Lijop and Devin, and you know what Devin obviously deserved. I think Devin's becoming that next to Stephen Carroll, that focal point of this one, like a pillar on this team. Even though I don't really love using the word pillar all the time. But
stanchion.
Yeah, work, dude. Michael Bryant will also be somebody. I think Danny loves how much he talks shit in games.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of that, and I think what we're talking about here, and I think this is a great segue into it's that time, gents. We were talking a lot of the reasons about why Michael Bryant makes sense to return as a complementary piece on the field. However, Adam, Sean, I know you guys are still featuring regularly in Northern Guard Supporters Discord, constant on there. Adam, I know you have
I am a lurker. I don't.
Yeah. But Adam, I know
Sean's a lurker.
Sean's a
I love
lurker.
it.
Yeah.
Sean's a lurker. I got out of it a couple years ago. And Adam, I know you're in the thick of it always.
No, I'm done. Well, I know I'm the thick of it. I'm just, I chime in when I feel I need to chime in.
Yeah. When people message you when they think someone should be banned.
If somebody wants an update on their merch order, then I chime in.
Okay.
or people not understand polls that come out and they realize that we're the ones that create. Well, Adam in this case sent out the poll. Point
I just want to know if people want MLS to come to Detroit. That's all I want to know. I wanted to ask a bunch of Lions fans essentially if they wanted MLS, and they didn't.
More people went.
Well, what that means? Yeah, that means we have successfully blackpilled the community here.
Yes, exactly.
Because really, in most environments, they'd think saying MLS is like saying, "Do you want that sounds cool? Like, well, I want a soccer team. That sounds cool."
Yeah.
Yeah, and they know enough to. Even Lions fans are like, "Well, hold up, I think we got one already." Like, that's right. Or they're like, fuck soccer, eat shit, fucking soccer, you communists.
Yeah, people wanted the Shock to return. That's what people wanted to return, the Shock. And I don't blame them.
Yeah, WNBA is banging.
Oh, yeah, it is, yeah.
We covered Detroit City for a living, and while a Super League team would be fucking great, I would fucking love either a Shock to come back or a PWHL team. Because, that's my main things. And also our main point to people that are still understanding why Detroit City-centric people involved would put a poll out that there's two things. First off, a lot of people that follow the Majors Detroit, as you guys mentioned, may not aren't into this fully as the other sports in this city or in general. And two, if you're willing to wear a shirt that says FCK MLS, it's another thing, and it gives you more validity and credibility to explain why you feel strongly about those reasons, rather than say, why are we putting that fucking poll out? Why do we gotta let these people listen? I'm paraphrasing here, but you get
I think it's a natural thing to get into organizations and subtly try to make yourself the center of a Politburo, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's not natural, but it does happen a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And I hope everyone involved can reflect on their bad choices.
So noon Monday, I think it was noon Eastern Monday, maybe 1 p.m., something around that time. Michael Bryant is announced as returning.
Mm.
What's the reaction? So, a two-part question. The reaction of Michael Bryant returning to Detroit City for 2 years, 2025 and 2026. How is that met, first off? And this is not just in NGS Discord also. I've seen it as well in the Faithful of Detroit City, formerly Detroit City FC Owners Group Facebook. First part question. General reaction to it.
Our reaction to it?
The people's reaction, the main reaction, not us, but
overjoyed.
Yeah, ecstatic. Like,
yeah.
You know, like,
second,
you know, go ahead.
Second part of that, is it because of the pieces of what we talked about as being a potentially complementary piece to it being on the field and so forth, or more so because the person that talks to them is close in a way to them that kind of makes them feel like themselves, and dare I say, kind of that buddy, closest player that they may have a relationship is back?
I mean, you know, it's not a perfect correspondence, probably sometimes not at all correspondence between a player's like quality on the roster and their vibe with the supporters. You know, that's always, supporters have always, of every club everywhere, have always kind of had guys that were, you know, really their guys, right? And Michael has kind of cultivated that since he came here. Like, he came here to be around these supporters, right? That's like, he saw us when he was in Nisa and was like, fuck yeah, okay. And, you know, as I understand it, he was not difficult to recruit. You know, that like Trev tapped him up and he was like, yeah, awesome. You know,
players don't like being told to fuck off from the fence line if you're on the other team. I mean, I don't. I think generally speaking, they probably don't like that. But you get to be on the other side of it. That probably feels a lot better.
Well, yeah, and I think that, you know, for a lot of guys, like, they like, hate is better than indifference, right?
Yes.
And you know, you're hoping to become a professional player, and you've played largely in front of crowds your entire life that were largely indifferent. You know, they're kind of like, you know, if you do something amazing, they're thrilled, but you know, they're not on pins and needles watching this game. They're kind of like, it's something that's going on in the background.
I've seen the crowds at Championship Stadium and where Cal United used to play. It didn't look like a.
Yeah, it's like a chill family night out. You know, there's lots of like the adults who might be kind of getting what's happening or not paying any attention because they all brought like 8 kids and they're like, you know, wrangling the whole time. Like every shot you see is just like adults wrangling and kids sort of like ingesting something. So, but you know, cool. Got to sell tickets to somebody. And you know, so I don't. It doesn't bother me that people express their happiness about it. It does kind of bother me if they're trying to say like, this is the signing that makes the difference for the season. Like, you know, oh, hold up. Like, you like Michael a lot, but and he was an important player this year and will probably continue to be so, but he's not like one of the cornerstone players of this side, you know, and like, if you could just acknowledge that, then everybody feels okay. Like, you just be like, I don't get, you know, this isn't about him being messy. This is about him being awesome. And okay. But it seems like there are some people who kind of like want to have both things. And it's like, well, that's not the truth. You know, I really like Michael as a player. I like him. He's a good dude. He really is. Like, he's a good dude. And I'm glad we've signed him. But I'm not like penciling him in, like, you know, as a starter really anywhere.
Adam, I want to get your thoughts also on this too, but I want to ask one more question for the both of you. And it's something that we talked to an extent, and then I might go on like a little piece. A month ago, after we lost and we exited the playoffs, we talked about what we were hearing was about Maxi Rodriguez, which, you know, became official last Monday, of Maxi Rodriguez going to Rhode Island. And, you know, Adam explained honestly, like, hey, here's the situation, before people thought he was fucking crazy. But also these surroundings, what we were thinking might have been Michael Bryant's departure. And
yep.
You know, and we talked about how people were finding out about that, and how something that is normally very what I consider, and we've talked about, as a situation that should be handled between player and parties of those peers, became a kind of a public issue. And unfortunately, in addition to this situation that was our playoff exit the way that it was via a penalty shootout. Fast forward a month later, Michael Bryant is back with this club on a 2-year deal. So this is what I asked the question. It kind of goes back to, I think, what you were talking about earlier with Trevor James and everything like that, and also current. If Trevor James is not only just sporting director of this club, but also a head coach, manager, like he was a couple of years ago, and Sean, I want to get your opinion, especially because I feel like you have the most experience out of all of us in these situations like this. If this was a year or 2 years ago or anything like that, and this situation happened when Michael Bryant had come back from Detroit City, or would be playing for another club?
I don't know. I would have to know how much Trevor heard. You know what I mean? This is the kind of thing that he would, like, when I worked for the club, he would ask me about. Be like, "Are you hearing anything about this?" So I don't, I assume he has somebody else he can ask, but I don't know who that person would be. So maybe he doesn't. And so maybe he didn't really hear about it. Alternately, it could be one of those things that it's like, what are you going to do? It's a dude's mom. He can't put her on a leash, like she's going to do what she's going to do. And like,
he'll be grounded.
Right. Well, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I know.
You can tell your mom, like, Mom, don't talk. But like, if your mom is just
Mom,
like, mom, dad, like, if your parents are people that always talk to people who are around them and kind of are open and honest folks, that that's probably going to come out because they're going to get chummy with the people they're sitting next to over the course of a couple matches, and eventually they're going to tell them like, I really want him to come back here, but like they're offering peanuts, like, so like I think Trev's pretty experienced in this thing. I think that if she was trying to contact him or something, like if it got that out of pocket, if he was getting stern phone calls from Michael Bryant's mom, okay, that would probably be that would end it. But
waiting for Trevor outside the clubhouse,
right? You need to explain yourself, sir. That would break it. But I think that there's a pretty clear division in everyone's mind between business and personality, and that helps everybody kind of get around the incredibly mercenary nature of these relationships where, you can really like somebody, but they hurt their knee last year and you feel sad about that, but also they can't run anymore. So sorry. And that happens all the time. You love a dude that you cut, all the time. So I don't think it, like, having thought more about it, I don't think it would have redounded that much unless it was really florid, unless it was just crazy. Because, Trev demands a lot of his players, but I don't think he demands that they control their families or anything like that. Now, if he found it galling, he might talk to Michael about it and say, "Can you ask her to, it's getting back to me, like I don't like that."
Yeah, I think, and I think both parents were staying one. Yeah, we're both in that situation, but okay.
Yeah, I heard about his mom. I didn't hear about the dad, but it makes sense that they were both there. I mean, like I say, you sit in the same place a couple matches. You by the especially you're on the seated side. The people around you by then. Like
Yeah,
we've been here. We've spent several hours together.
I think in this case, and then maybe this is where the connection. I think also too, and Adam, I can let you talk about this with parasocial relationships, because this is, I think, a thing we talked about. I think in this case, it's like, I think they're in the supporter stance watching matches now. So it's almost,
really?
Yeah. Oh. So this is where my point about, there was a saying that we used to say, and I feel like I said this back when I was thick in supporter culture. That, gents, I go by in stands to say hi to people, but I do it enough, and I want to get over to get to that tent area and just immerse myself in the game. And like, I see the supporter culture, but I don't want to be in it. there was a saying that we used to say, and I think this was in 2022 or whatever, when there was the start of the, people being uncertain about us in the move to USL, and, having people FO maybe bending the knee a little bit more than we would have liked and all this. And there was a saying that would say, I think, Adam, I always heard you say this as well, the FO aren't your friends in this situation. There is separate relationships, and acknowledge that. I also feel like, too, the lines can eventually be too blurred at times if you're not careful between players of this club who are paid contract employees,
right,
for work and coaches and everything, versus, dare I say, supporters, people in supporter roles and liaison roles to that, whether you're in setup, whether you're in player support, all these type of things and this goes to parasocial relationships, and I'll hand it to Adam to get his take on it. The lines can be seen, and to me, almost they're starting to become too blurred and almost too close in some of these relationships, I feel like. And I also feel like that when I think about this club and supporter general, and I think about this in a Northern Guard supporters context, I think back to 10 years. I think back to something, Sean, you wrote 10 years ago. I think you wrote this. I don't know the exact line by line, so I'll hand it to you. The first time you met everybody when you were covering Adria, Open Cup 2014 at Schoolcraft College, what was that line that you said about MGS? That quote that seemed to be, it was something about.
Was it the poll quote?
It was something, yeah. Give me the.
Was it like we're family friendly? Went slumming and got stomped biker style or something.
No, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I think what you're talking about, to me, what you're talking about is the commodification of the supporter experience. The kind of packaging of it as something that is available to you on a whim, on a one-off, come to the stadium, be a supporter for a day. Yeah. And that's how we always recruited, was just people just come in and start. But there was a very definite center and a very definite I would say sort of moral and ethical center to the group, and honestly a fairly heavy hand in policing the behavior of the people around the supporters group. Like, if you're not going to stand and sing, get the fuck out of here. And that's how they would talk to you. They were like, hey, listen, this is a supporter section, okay? And what that means is that we give everything during the 90 minutes for our club. Like, Jesus Christ, what are we fucking explaining this? Get the fuck out of here. You see everyone standing and singing, right? What, are you too cool for that? Then go the fuck over there where other people are sitting. Go away. And I would like to see that return. I would like to see a little more contentious relationship with looky-loos and fucking, one-day supporters. Okay, well, you want to be a supporter? Then you do supporter shit. You sing these songs. You don't know them? Here's a fucking hymnal. Now stop fucking talking to me and sing.
And if you're going to be a current member of what I consider, of what I call, and Adam's heard me say, it's this new era of Northern Guard, especially, those that seem to be front and center, speaking more and more about things online. Remember what this group was, remember what it was, and how, and the things it represented, first off. And second of all, if you're going to talk about, for example, if you're going to be involved in stuff or in games, and you're going to talk about, things that happen in matches or in particular, or want to bitch about calls and that, no fucking ball before you speak about fucking ball.
I mean, You know, I think talking and getting corrected is a lot of how people learn about ball. So I mean,
don't be
go
offended.
ahead. I'm sorry. Am I cutting someone off? I can't tell.
Sorry, no, you're good. You're good. That's what I say. I was saying, let's not offend anybody. Don't be offended if we tell you, like, hey, if we're correcting.
Yeah. You know, I think everybody should, you know, approach this with a sense of humility and curiosity. That's how I approach a game of football. I want to try to understand it. And you know, I do not. I fail consistently. There's so much. It's impossible to fully absorb what's happening on the pitch. There's just too much. There's too many things happening in various areas. You can kind of like sometimes you can sort of like, you know, cross your eyes or something, like kind of see it in terms of space and use of space, like, but that is a different thing. Like there's no way to then you're losing all the skill touches, all the how's the ball spinning, what's the conditions, you're losing all of that because you're kind of squinting and just seeing like shapes moving on a rectangle. And you know, I think that's true of everybody. So you know, the fact is that like when I watch a game sitting next to Trev, I will occasionally see something that he's like, oh, really? You know, now that's not often, right? But even somebody that experienced who's seen that many, you know, millions of hours of football potentially, can't see all of it. As it's happening. So I guess what I'm kind of making a pitch here is two things. One, if you're going to voice your opinion and you don't really know ball, like be ready for somebody to say, actually, it's like this, you know. And my second thing is, if you're one of the people who knows ball, share it, but without dickishness, if you can. I know it's hard. There are times where it seems exasperating, and I am someone who is like, I have resting dick face, you know. I really like, if you catch me and I'm not like full of self-awareness in the moment, I probably am an asshole to you, and I won't even register that I am being an asshole. I'm in therapy, I'm working on it, but
Sean,
like,
you do not have resting dick face. I can say that for certain. You do not have resting dick face. But go ahead.
I just feel like you know, there have been many situations where I've responded to people kind of like just irritated, you know, in a way that I wish I'd been like, you know, hey, you know, I get what you're saying, but that's not right. Instead I'm like, you know, I come across like I'm posting on Twitter or something, you know, like, you fool. Yeah, you know, so I don't know. Anyway, like I would like the conversation in the stands to be a little bit more about football. That would be great. And so, you know, if you know ball, like share that. And if you don't know ball, be honest with yourself and understand that everyone is in both categories in different situations. You know, you're not always the ball knower. Sometimes people know more than you, and you're not always the idiot. Sometimes there's someone who's like literally never seen anyone run before, and you're sitting next to them. So, oh my God, this is so exciting. And like, you know, the need to be kind in those moments, I think that's where I don't mind being kind. Like it's just specifically the people who are, you know, I mean, what I'm basically talking about are groups of dude bros, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like massively drunk dickheads who bought like tickets all together. We're going to soccer match, and they watched like Green Street Hooligans once 8 years ago. And they're like, remember that movie where those English dudes like fought before every game? That was fucking awesome. Like they probably
don't have the Saturdays Are for the Boys flag in their house somewhere.
Right. Like, you know, they're going on a like pretending they lived in, you know, fucking Middlesbrough in 1987, you know, like that's their thing. We're gonna ride the tube and smash some faces. Like, okay, like you just get rid of those guys. Like we don't owe the club anything. to be honest. Like, thank you. We're here. We paid to get in here, and we don't have to associate with these dickheads. Like, just go somewhere else. Now, the difficult thing is that in the old days, the person bringing that message was Ken or Gene. And Ken and Gene, either one, are massively physically intimidating.
Yep.
Right? So they come and kind of loom over you and look like, 280 pounds of like hog wrestler, and say, listen, you can't do that. And if you want to keep doing it, get the fuck out of here. And people just go, okay, and we need a monster in leadership somewhere, because what we've got now is if let's say I go up to a group of people, well, now I'm going to have to like talk to these assholes. They're not going to just automatically obey me out of fear that one of them is about to get thrown like over the stands. And that's pretty much true of everybody else that's not Ken or Gene. So that's part of why we've drifted this way, I think, is that like, it does help to be physically intimidating when you're dealing with people who've like are so inebriated you're just talking to their the lizard part of their brain right at the top of the brain stem or something. So I get it, but it does still need to change.
What about what's your take on it all, Adam? Either the parasocial relationship, all this, the way, the reasons people are reacting, etc., all that.
I think that when I first got involved, it was the tail end of NPSL, and so the team was still amateur at the time, and I get it. I think that people love a team that is, that they have some accessibility to, and you're not going to get the type of accessibility to Detroit, to other professional teams in this city like you will Detroit City FC. That's something that you kind of, have to admire about Detroit City FC, and the way that the connection that they have with their fans and supporters. And I think that's cool. Again, the one thing that is different, though, is, these are guys who are on, well, I'm speaking, strictly about the men's first team. These are guys who, this is what they do for a living for the very, very most part. They are professionals. And there's going to be these different variables and everything like that come into play, and that is going to affect, maybe how they play out the season, and what happens in the off season, and so on and so forth. And I got what you meant, Garret, about blurring those lines. I always knew that was important ever since I got involved.
I have a point about that when you're done.
Yeah, when I got involved with the SG, that was one of the most important things that was stressed to me is, you don't want to blur the lines between SG and the front office. And I completely 100% get that. I don't know if that's so much, I'm screwing that up. I don't know if that is as important, though, when it comes to players. I think that there's a nuanced difference between, players and then the FO. I don't think there's as big of a deal about, getting close to these players, as long as there's an understanding that this men's first team is a professional side, and there are a whole bunch of strings attached to these players that are going to have to be taken into consideration when, certain things happen. I mean, Michael Bryant playing well or not playing well is going to obviously affect what this team wants to do with them. Mm-hmm. And if the right choices aren't made with some of these players, then that may affect the job of Danny Dicchio. It may affect the jobs of his coaching staff, and it goes all the way up too. It goes, it may affect the job of Trevor. There's just, there's this team isn't the same as it was back in 2019. It's not the same as it was back in 2016. It's not. This is a fully professional side now, and there's much more that needs to be taken into consideration when it comes to something like that, when it comes to those parasocial relationships, when it comes to the play on the field, when it comes to the decisions that Trevor may make from the front office, or that Danny may make from the touchline. But obviously, and I have thoughts on Michael too, which I was going to kind of transition into, some of my thoughts on Maxi. But go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, that's. I was worried you were going to transition as you were talking. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah,
I largely agree with everything you said there. I think that it's up to the players kind of how much they want to engage with the supporters. Yeah. I think, and Michael obviously has chosen to engage with the supporters a great deal. And that's won him like love and admiration. It's also boosted his mental health charity.
It's one of recognition, Sean, with the supporters. There's
right, and it's been a good exchange, I think. I will say that if I was working for City and advising Michael, I would be starting to talk to him about pumping the brakes on that, because your relationship to people changes when the people become a crowd. A crowd is not full of people. A crowd is a thing of its own. And so I do worry that the more you're out there, and the more you are really like engaging with people and making it like when you make it clear to other people who are there watching, and say in the aftermath of a match, that you have really like rich, deep relationships with several of the supporters. Two things are happening. One is they're feeling like they don't have that, and the second thing is they're some of them are thinking, well, I want that. I want to get that for myself. And eventually, there's only so much of yourself to pass out, right? So eventually,
100%.
Eventually, someone's disappointed, and you don't know how they're going to handle that. So that's where I would caution him. Like, I've just. People be crazy. And, I've had unpleasant, intense admiration directed toward me because of my work various times. And it is extremely awkward and uncomfortable because, you're being complimented. You feel like you should say thank you, but it quickly becomes clear that this is just a fire that you're feeding every time you interact. Like, oh no, oh dear. And that's, I guess, I'm sure that Michael's had those conversations probably with like Tiffany and Trevor about, this can be risky, keep yourself within yourself.
Be careful.
Right. But it's to his credit that he, look, I think, if you're signing him and you're, the supporter thing is a benefit. And okay, so he signed a 2-year deal. He'll be done in 26, 27 is when we open the stadium. And you're going to start to need like supporter liaison people if you're really going to have, a 6,000 seat, supporter section or something, 4,000 seats out of a 14,000 seat stadium. Like, you're going to get an overwhelming number of people jumping on board at that point, and so you need to plan for that.
Especially that first season. Sean.
So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some thought like that, you're talking about a player, an ex-player who could be fantastic with the supporters and kind of fill that role like with some authority. Michael in 2 years, I could see that happening, if he wants to. Sure. I do hope that Detroit City continues to be kind of clever and innovative about, trying people out, keeping people in the group, and doesn't just go full mercenary at every, that's, it's starting to feel a little bit like that. Like we're going to just get hired guns for every single thing. Like, we want like absolute sharks selling tickets, and we need, and I get it, it's a business, etc. But, while I'm sure there's probably someone who's specializing in exactly that in college, I'd like to see Michael get a shot at it.
So you're gonna have Matt Sheldon being the new John Heveron, and
which I
Michael
think
Bryant can be the new.
Which is also why I think people want to, because this kind of goes back to the thing about, I think for him, Sheldon. I've heard people talk about, I think with Sheldon's like, yeah, his videos are fantastic. What about dude can fucking run a motor and
right? Yeah,
which is more important than what he can do from a social media standpoint. Right. If we're talking strictly, soccering and whatnot.
Right. If he's re-signed, which they've pretty much zeroed everyone else out except for who is it? Matt and Ryan Williams, right? Those are the two guys that haven't been signed, and they haven't announced like we're not signing them.
Ryan, they talked about return.
They're like, we're trying to work something out, and they haven't said anything about Matt really. So yeah, I could see Matt coming back and being kind of the backup on both at both wingback positions. I think we saw more out of him this year than I expected to. Honestly, he's way quicker than I thought he was. So he played kind of as a defensive winger several times with mixed results, but he did show that his pace was pretty nasty. Now on the offensive end, that's literally all he has. Like if you can run with him, he's screwed. He just needs to turn and give the ball up to someone else. But that's fine for a wingback, like especially a backup wingback.
And that's kind of how I felt about it too, Sean. The thing with Matt, that's not a signing that's going to make or break, what City does, I think, right. In 2025. Same thing goes with Michael Bryant. If they decided to move on from him, I was going to be, I was okay with that. It's, right. And if they decide to bring him back, I'm okay with that. I don't think that Michael Bryant is one of those signings that is going to, like I said, make or break what City does, moving on to, into 2025. I think that's, he can be a helpful piece into this, in this lineup. He could be a
exactly.
good depth piece too, especially, given some of these other signings that we had.
Right. If you're gonna cut these guys loose and sign replacement level players instead of them, they're basically replacement level players. Why don't you just sign them?
Sure.
Unless and they're clearly guys that are good in the locker room. Like there's no personality issues there. This is a good place, I think, to pivot to the Maxi conversation, because Maxi is absolutely the pivotal player on this team from the moment he signed, and not being even in the ballpark of the kind of money he wanted once he this is what he planned to do. He's like, okay, this is my peak earning time. I don't think he was unhappy here, but I think he's like, look, this is my last big contract, probably. It's 29.
And Sean, this is what happens in professional sports.
Right.
When you get that last opportunity to sign that last big deal, you got to take it.
Yeah, I have no idea what the actual numbers are, because USL is tight with their payroll information.
Yeah.
But
tighter than when Nicolas Cage stole the Declaration of Independence.
Right. So the the thing about it is this is like a real soccer league, right? There's no like shenanigans of we're all together and everybody's sharing a pot of money. No, fuck that. No. Like if you've got a ton of money, you can just spend it on players. And Rhode Island are owned by people who have a ton of money, and they came in here to create a splash. They are experienced. They own other football clubs, and they came in with a plan and a lot of money. And you know, when Maxi went out of contract, I'm sure he was contacted by basically everybody. You know, I mean, he's a best 11 guy in the league. And he's been very visible, right? Playing for City makes you very visible. And you know, he's been the center of this team. He's kind of he's the guy who's always, you know, his hair flying, celebrating a goal. Like he's very distinctive. He's visually distinctive. So, you know, I think he's super marketable, and I think that it very quickly got completely out of the kind of money that we could even think about. Like it was, and it became a problem. Like I think you know, we were hearing that the last few weeks of the season that Maxi wasn't super popular in the locker room, and Ben Morris did win the Player of the Year. Like Maxi got like 2 votes.
And Maxi been admitted when he won the Black Arrow, literally, that he could be an asshole.
Right. And well, but as I understand it, I think we've talked about this before. I think what happened was Maxi went out. You know, Maxi, they let his contract run down. Like, you know, everybody's contacting his agent on July 1st, probably. Mm-hmm. And I think the money that he was offered, you know, I think he had several offers, and I think the money that Rhode Island offered him was so far outside of what we could do. It was clear that he was gone. Mm-hmm. And so he knew from the middle of the summer that he was leaving. And I think he made no bones about it in the locker room. And further, really talked about how much money Rhode Island had, a lot. And said, you know, and talked to, you know, his teammates saying, are you running down your contract? Because you might want to get a hold of them. Like, so, you know, I think he felt like he was like trying to talk guys up. And I think the guys were like, okay, you're being a disloyal scumbag right now. And, you know, that explains a great deal of the sort of vibe there. And, you know, it's too bad because, you know, I absolutely love him as a player. I do not think he's great, but I think he is. He understands his limitations incredibly well, and he's incredibly smart. As a player, like, yeah, I'm gonna miss him. We're gonna miss him. His ability to take the onus on himself for solving problems on the field, and kind of like his insistence that he be the thinking center of the team, was notable, first of all, and secondly, really unusual. You know, it's the kind of thing you say you want to see from players, but you don't really see it as consistently from somebody as you do as we have for Maxi. Like, you know, there were those stretches. He had that stretch where he didn't have goals for a long time, and he would have stretches where
14 games.
His form was sort of indifferent. And I honestly think that's because he has to get himself worked up into such a high state of like awareness to be at his best that it just is exhausting. And like he kind of runs out of juice, you know. And then I think he signed that new contract and kind of got the wind in his sails again. He signed a new contract with Rhode Island and is like, I want to leave Detroit City with good feelings about me. And like he came out and was like lights out, like every match, like bang, 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 like just looking fantastic. Moved back to the double pivot, like
after he listened to us question him, and then he scored in the next game.
Right, yeah, you know, he had dropped off, but you know, like I think it's a matter of him kind of challenging himself to get to that level. I don't know if you've never seen Maxi play in a big game like live. It's like you can see it on his face. You can see it in his posture. Like he came there to be the guy. Like I'm here, and I'm here to like dominate this. I'm here to be the difference, in a way that like no one else does that I can remember. Like I think he's unique in city history, for being a guy that like pulls the team around himself and makes it shape itself around him. And I will miss that a great deal.
Adam, drop your take.
Yeah,
because Blue Sky is pissed at you.
Yeah, I made some people mad at me on Blue Sky. And I'm going to miss Maxi. I think that he was very good. I think he gave City everything he possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about it. I think eventually, at one point, he probably will have a velvet painting hanging in the clubhouse. Sean, you mentioned something. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
One thing I agree with, pretty much everything you said, Sean. Especially too when you said that Maxi is good, not great, and what he is, I'm assuming, probably being paid now through Rhode Island is great money. And that's fine when you are a team when you're a club that can throw around that type of money, then you do it. You overspend on players, and that's
right.
That's fine.
You don't know in advance which ones you're overspending on. That's the thing.
Exactly.
It's like you just kind of go, okay, well, we're gonna have, there's gonna be some busts in here, but we've got money, and this is how we're recruiting. Like we want players to know that this is where you get the money.
Yes, and the thing with Maxi too is he is 29 years old right now. He's going to be 30 in August. So he's going to be 30 about halfway through the season next year. What Rhode Island is paying him for is not necessarily what he's going to do for them in the future.
Yeah.
They're really kind of paying for him for what he's done in the past with Detroit City.
Right.
I don't think Maxi Rodriguez is going to be getting any better as a player.
No,
I think the best years that Maxi Rodriguez has had is going to be with Detroit City FC. Now, can that be masked in a sense by Rhode Island going and throwing a bunch of money at a bunch of other players and surrounding Maxi with better players and him, conceivably having a better season? Yeah, that's possible. The thing with Maxi, though, and I think the thing that, kind of I don't know if it's so much threw everybody off or made me, people think that I was crazy when I said that, yeah, I thought Maxi Rodriguez was a little overrated. I didn't say he was a little overrated. I said he was overrated. And it stemmed from that USL article when they're kind of ranking the signings and everything like that for the league and, all the transactions that were made. So
where Maxi was the number one signing.
Maxi was the number one signing. And the guy who wrote the article for USL, responded to me, and he was kind of comparing all of Maxi's stats to Detroit City as a whole. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if, Maxi being at the top of all of these statistical categories is really justification for him to be like this great player, because Detroit City, since 2022 at the very least, wasn't very good offensively. And we really haven't, grown that much offensively, if at all, since 2022. We had a 1.3 goal average in 2022, and that's what it was this year too, up from the 0.9 I think it was in 2023. The thing with Maxi too is he's a guy that is probably going to score a little bit more for you as a central mid or attacking mid. He's going to be pretty good defensively. He's not going to create a bunch of chances for you though, and I think that if you're talking about a guy who's going to be making all this money, you have to be a guy that's going to be serviceable in more than kind of two statistical categories here when you're talking about a guy who's going to command most of that offense, who that offense is going to be built around. And again, I don't know if that's what's going to be happening in Rhode Island. However, in Detroit City, he was the guy that most of this was built around.
Yeah,
offensively.
I'm sorry.
And I think we got as far as we could with that. And I thought it would have been irresponsible for us to go out and throw a bunch of money at Maxi and not adequately address any of these other areas with that money that would have been saved by not bringing Maxi back. Yeah. Because that's something that I think that's something that you have to do at this point. You have to look for other solutions, because nobody can say that we haven't tried with Maxi. We haven't tried with, having him be the focal point in this offense. It's been 4 years now with Maxi pretty much as that focal point. And it got us a championship in NISA. It won us everything in NISA. It got us to the playoffs in USL Championship, and that's it. And that's fine. It's fine to move on. And I think it was time for both sides in this sense to kind of move on from each other. It was time for Maxi to get that last big bag, and it was time for Detroit to look at other solutions offensively. It was time to look at other centerpieces offensively. Because Maxi Rodriguez, a 29-year-old attacking mid, isn't going to do it for you anymore. And and that's not surprising. But yeah, when it all comes down to it, when it all comes down to, what Maxi at this point right now is going to be able to give you offensively from a goal scoring standpoint. Remember, he had 10 goals this year, which is fine. This was the second time since he came to City that he got in a double digit scoring. And three of those goals came via the penalty. But he wasn't very good at creating chances. He fell off once Elvis and Ali Coot were out of the picture, and he managed to pick it up after. And, ironically, like you mentioned, Sean, it was probably when he signed that contract.
Okay. So I do think, there's a lot of different aspects to this decision to me. And the one inexorable aspect is that time is advancing, right? Like, he is getting older, the player's getting older. And
it happens. Time is undefeated.
And I think that if we had gone all in, somehow found another, $150,000 in the couch cushions and thrown that money at him, I think there's a possibility that would have been a terrible contract. That we would be sitting here going, ooh, it's a classic paying for past performance mistake. And that's I think Trevor's good at this. He's good at building rosters.
General manager's fire too, Sean.
Right, exactly. That's the kind of sentimental thing that fucks you. But I think I see it a little different. I mean, to me, I think I had questions about Maxi as an attacking midfielder in the preseason. I just don't see his skill set as matching being in the zone 14 and creating. Moreover, I think that the tactical advancement of football has essentially ruled out that kind of player. There's a reason nobody does that. And it's not because people forgot the skill. It's because the tactical schemes have advanced, and now we have data that shows that the best shots are in this cone right in front of the goal. So that area is incredibly crowded in every scheme now, because you are a fool if you're not crowding that. It's something you just must do. So Maxi is not a guy who turns under tremendous pressure or has a million clever ways to put the ball under his foot and get past you. That's just not his game. He's not that technical. He's technical enough like I think that Maxi has a very specific way of playing that is incredibly persuasive, and I also think that his personality is one that demands the team shape itself around him. Not vocally, he isn't out there going, no, 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 you're playing through me. It's just like his play is very persuasive, and he takes up great positions when he's in that further back role. I think that really what he needs, because his technical skills are just sufficient at this level. He's like a step and a half above Connor. He's not like, oh my God, look at the shit he's doing. He's very functional, simple. He's got a lot. He runs well with the ball, but he's not weaving through traffic usually. Ideally he has a role where he has a lot of ball usage. He has a lot of freedom to kind of keep the play in front of him and kind of do tactical analysis sort of on the fly and figure, okay, like if I go over here, I'm going to hit a soft spot and I'm going to be able to play it. Like you see that a lot where he would drift out to the right wing. He's looking for like a back post cross or a switch, and it like he's just sort of roaming around and going, okay, this is a space. You can only do that if the team has been built to allow you to do that. Like if you do that, when Lai would do that, it would fuck us over because we weren't allowed to have Lai do that. And so like all of a sudden everyone's running around. And I think that's why the team winds up. I think that Rhode Island will probably wind up playing Maxi as part of a kind of a double pivot where the other guy stays if they want to get what they can get out of him, or he'll be on the bench and they'll be like, we shouldn't have signed him. Because like I think I could see a future where we just continue to groove this thing with Maxi, because I think it is pretty special. Like I think his mind is very special. The thing is, like at the very top level, you got to have it all. You got to be so technical, so smart, also a blindingly crazy athlete. Probably fairly large. Like you got to have all of it. And he's very close to the top level, and he does not have all of it. And he makes himself incredibly effective by being very smart. And I don't think that's going to go away. No. But I could see, Rhode Island playing a very demanding, like they're going to get a bunch of athletes that are probably going to gegenpress, right? And I could see them wanting somebody like wanting a double pivot that's going to both mind space. Or so, like having some tactical thing that just kind of doesn't groove with what he wants. And I think, it's very conceivable that we see Maxi not getting the playing time, and like he will struggle with that. If he's not starting often, he will chafe at that.
Got a deep squad, and that's even before him. When you look at getting guys like Jack Panayutu last year on loan from Rhode Island is not afraid to go up and bring guys up to make moves, and also like
is the owner English?
Huh?
Is the owner English? Or is he American? I can't remember.
Keep talking, Garrett. I'll check.
I think they own an English club, right. Which means you could like now there are huge problems with loaning players in from England especially, but from Europe at all, because of the different roster, the different calendars, and the nature of the U.S. of any U.S. season that begins with like they really, what are they going to like loan us somebody from that plays from like late March to like they're getting it back 2 months later, so like you're not going to see a ton of loan movement that way, but it is something I could do. Yep.
Their one owner, Brett Johnson, owns or invests in several football clubs, including Ipswich and Phoenix Rising.
Okay, right.
I wonder if he's cut out of Rising a bit, because I know Rising's got a new primary owner as of late.
I think that was part of that deal. Like
I think the Ipswich thing, that was funny though.
yeah, and Ipswich is incredibly well. I mean, Ipswich is really well run. There's a reason they peaked up into the Premier League this year. And I think it's possible that Rhode Island, like, just sort of strides past Louisville City and becomes the default, giant in the East. Because, they've got smart people. They've got a lot of money.
Wow. He's the co-founder of Phoenix Rising.
Really?
Yeah.
So he founded Phoenix Rising and then bought into Ipswich and now founded a Rhode Island.
Probably got out of Phoenix and now is full.
So what we're getting from this is the dude's a baller, right? He's a fucking baller. This is not easy to do. Like, you got to be good at football, good at running a football organization to have success anywhere.
He's like a more successful Peter Wilt.
Right. Yeah. Well, like Peter went with money and like as a business guy, Peter's more like marketing and
Larry without all the pizza.
Huh?
Lawrence Gerard without.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. I mean, wow. Lisa, it's hard to even it's like, man, we really did live through that. Like, holy shit.
We lived and survived, Sean.
Yeah. Survive in advance.
That'll be something that we'll talk about later on. But
yeah, I think that that'll be a real winter deep cut. So far I feel pretty encouraged by what Detroit City's done in the market. I think they've signed, the guys they've signed are have that Trevor look, like solid dudes who know their position. Like it's not going to be any problem. These are pros. My questions, every team that builds a stadium, every club that builds a stadium with some of their own money gets into the shit. Every fucking one. Arsenal, right? There's so many. You build a new stadium and it just takes your eye off the ball a little bit, and it adds all this other stuff that you got to fucking deal with and that everybody kind of has to deal with. And it does trickle onto the field sometimes. I worry that that maybe our budget isn't what it could be for player payroll, because there's only so much money, and we've got a lot of very expensive things to do. And yes, we have investors coming in and piling money in front of us, and that's something that I think we need to ask a lot of questions about at owners meetings, because we're buying millions and millions of dollars of tracts of land. How are we doing that? Who's paying for that? And how much of the club's equity have you salvaged or sacrificed to do that, if any? Because this is a huge capital project, and I worry that the club could get mired in a situation where someone who seemed to be a partner becomes adversarial and wants to have control over some part of this that nobody would be happy about.
Yeah.
I mean, I gesture at the world as it exists and encourage you to think of, where's the good guy rich dudes? Where do those people exist? It's possible they don't fucking exist. That the whole idea is antithetical to itself.
Yeah. My one final pace on here before we get to the outs and then the cup stuff. We talked about
we have less than 10 minutes, Ken.
Yeah.
Real quick with the outs. We talked about it to an extent with Michael. We talked about it with Maxi. We kind of talked about it, I think, with parasocial. My one thing is this. I think back to a saying of who you're here for, who you sing for, Detroit City. Regardless of your role, player, supporter, employee at the club shop, no one's bigger than this club in general. And there's value, there's, the feeling of value and all that, but don't let it get to your head, and two, avoid the adulation.
Well, yeah, I have to question whether it's healthy for the club and for the supporters group to have anyone be the face of the supporters group, to have anyone be the person who is constantly in the center of every photo, who's at the center of every ad. Like, why does that make sense? Like,
it doesn't.
It does. Nope. It does not make sense. And you know, I hope that everyone involved can kind of look at themselves and say, why am I doing this again? And you know, like, no one just I attended City matches. You know, I sat on the front row in the middle for years, and there are a few pictures where I'm in it, but not many. If you're constantly in the middle of photos, it's because you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're in it for the
you have to ask yourself if that is the kind of motivation you think a leader of this group should have. And if you're answering that saying it's no big deal, then you have forgotten the face of your father. You know, like, no, you're wrong.
100%. Yep.
And there's, unfortunately, I think a few people we can relate that to, and also, quick word: Brent Levi's, Wiedt Matthews. Brent Levi's 1.5 years with this club. I think Father Time started to catch up with him by the time he got here, but did provide a valuable role. Someone that, you know, we've gotten to know quite well over the last 5 years.
So wild.
Wiedt Matthews, someone who I don't think will be leaving Detroit City entirely, based off of, I know, work that Wiedt does in youth coaching, but the end of his Detroit City FC playing career for right now.
Yeah, I think Wiedt is about to become a full-time coach and an absolute terror in some, amateur league in town. You know, he's a great guy, self-effacing, works like a mule, like really great. And I hope that's the kind of guy that I hope sticks around. Like, you know, let's find something for him to do.
Yeah. Scored some massive goals in this.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, scored the equalizer against Houston in the Open Cup match.
His last goal.
Yeah. It's got the goal to beat Atlas. He got the goal against, somebody put the tin can photos up against the Stars.
Is that your first Adam?
That was my first away match. Yes.
Oh wow. Was the Stars away in the tin can?
Stars away, tin can. Yep. I remember my kid was pissed because he was thirsty and needed to get water. I'm like, hold on, we'll leave in just we'll get water in just a second. I'm bad father. I'm holding water from my kid.
It's always like tired idea of the matches now.
Yeah, no, I remember Jackie Carline sitting there with the megaphone with when they were announcing, you know, the Stars going pro, and her on the megaphone going blah 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 blah.
Yeah, it was pretty great. I think I'm trying to remember. I came over from the clubhouse, I think.
You were there.
Got there a little bit late. Wound up standing up there up top with Sean Mann for a while. I think I got down into the stands like later, but it was it was crowded. They were not planning for that crowd.
No, I loved Wiedt though. Like I said this before, he's one of my first favorite players on the club. I loved Wiedt. Great guy.
You know, Brett. Honestly, I think if he was healthy, he would have been a lockdown starter. Sure. He's a great chance creator, you know, combined well. But, you know, at this point, looking at the kind of physical struggles, I think it's hard for me to believe he's going to keep playing. Like, he's just really, you know, his whole year this year was rehabbing. And
he's got a future in football, though, whether it's scouting or getting into the coaching game. He's got a good mind for it.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, you know, I don't want people to feel like he was, you know, he's a very good player. And if we could have kept him, you know, he's just made of balsa wood, and he kept breaking. So, what was it? There was one more topic that I'm forgetting.
So it's USL announced today, Jägermeister Cup, Jäger bombs. My new haircut video reference, folks. Go check out YouTube. second year of the League Cup in USL. Last year was League One only. This year it's League One and a championship. The Detroit City's group is 6 teams, 4 USL championship teams. So Detroit City, Hartford Athletic, Rhode Island, and Pittsburgh Riverhounds. 2 new League One clubs. Portland Heart of Pine, I believe. They're in Portland, Maine.
Portland, Maine. Yep.
And Westchester SC and Mount Vernon, the land of Washington, are so I believe Mount Vernon was George Washington. You're wrong. Yep. They are starting this year. So what that is group matches start April 26th, commence the weekend in July 26th. Detroit City's not going to play everybody in that group. There's going to be 4 matches, 2 home and 2 away. Home teams get the random assignments. We'll learn more about that.
If we're away at Hearts of Pine and you like seafood, make the trip because, like amazing fresh seafood in Portland, Maine.
Yeah. So we'll learn more about that. Real quick, because we also have the W League thing before you got to leave. Happy about us having a chance to win a trophy, or upset because it's another competition and potentially can take away from an international friendly?
I think the days of us doing international friendlies are pretty much done while we're in Keyworth. I think the uniqueness of being a 4th division club that drew like that is not the same now that we're in 2nd division. And the teams the word has gotten out that the turf sucks and no one wants to play there. So that mitigates against it. Also, I like the idea of having a Leagues Cup. That's basically what this is, right? I think it'll be fun to see the lower league teams and maybe beat their brains out, maybe not that. And, everyone else, it's like, it's a competition that either you're doing well in it or it's a chance to play the guys who don't get a lot of minutes. So you're getting something out of it either way. Yeah. I like it. And I think that, we've been trying to put together international friendlies for a couple of years and it's been very difficult to get them lined up. The USLW League.
So, Tuesday, 2 teams joined in W League, which I think will be Detroit City's Division 1, Toledo Villa, and old MPSL side. That's all right. Big news.
That's fine. Yeah.
Union FC Macomb.
Yeah.
They play in my old high school, across from my old high school at Swinehart Field in Utica, home to Utica and where Utica and Eisenhower play. Here is the issue that could relate for Detroit City folks.
And it's just fucking heartbreaking, honestly.
A Nationals FC.
It's like what the Hawks did in Flint. It's a Nationals joint.
And this is Lily Jekyll, Ella Kang, Aubrey Chiampa. Nationals, their coach, or
Ava Landstra.
Ava Landstra, yep.
And one of their coaches is the one coaching this. So,
he's going to pull all those girls. Unless they insist that they actually want to play in front of fans, because let's make no mistake, this is going to be another one of those teams that starts and is drawing like family.
Can confirm for where I grew up.
so that, to me, that's the question. And if you're one of those players who's listening to me right now, your home games are going to be like your Nationals games are, right? There'll be some people watching, maybe your parents are interested, and there's going to be one game a year where you get to be in front of a crowd, and that's going to be on the road at Detroit City. Or
I love it. Sean's recruiting right now.
You can continue to build your legacy as a part of Detroit City Football Club, which is going to have a professional team by 2017, which is really a nice time for you ladies in particular, right?
17
or 2027. That's a really good time if you're, Lily Jekyll and wants to get paid playing football. If you're Ava Landstra and you want to get paid playing football, you're about to have a professional team right here that you can wear the same badge today.
You already have
or you could go with your Nationals coach. But here's the thing. Wisdom comes in a multitude of teachers. You like this guy, but how much more can he teach you? You need a different approach. You need to see somebody else for 6-8 weeks during the summer and learn something different from Dave Dwahey and Danny. Right. So Like, I get that he's going to put the hard press on you, but he needs you to keep competing at that level year round. You don't need him in the summer.
I'm going to cut this portion out and send it directly to them.
USLW League folk, if you're listening to this, you got a new matchup you can book in the summer as much watch. Also, real quick, this is probably UNFC Macomb looks to be taking the place of Flint at City AFC Bucks. We will know more once the schedule gets officially dropped, but that seems to be rumbling going round.
Right. Well, I mean, the way it looks in retrospect is like the Hawks made a play at trying to win a national title, and they had Olivia Thompson, who just won the NCAAs for North Carolina, starting at forward and fell to Indy 11. And then last year we beat them early, and they just kind of went fuck it, and it was children from there on out. They just basically pulled it at that point.
Cleveland scored.
Yeah, and now the club is going away, and this might happen. Like I'm guessing that if Macomb doesn't have immediate success at that level, if he successfully convinces Lily and Ava and everybody to Aubrey to stay with him, then they're going through the same thing. They're going to win a lot of matches in our league. They're probably going to win our division with that talent. And they're going to go to the playoffs and face a really cold-eyed team of 24-year-olds that, just put the sleeper hold on them, and just like the Indy 11 did to Flint. And the Nationals will be like, fuck it, let's get out of here. I could have it wrong. Maybe the Nationals, maybe this is part of a 10-year plan. This is year 4. Like, we're forming the club, but I kind of doubt it. And I think they're looking at the success we had with their players and feeling like, well, fuck this. Lily and Aubrey are like tearing shit up for Detroit City. Let's just stand up at Ella Kane. There's the women we're talking about, Lily, Aubra, Ellie, and Ava. Okay. And they're all high school kids, basically, and all incredibly good, and would be starters for us, and will certainly be starters for this Nationals Union thing. I've already made my pitch. you could clip that and just make it a separate YouTube upload. There's a City Make Spence stinger. This is why playing for Union Macomb is poison for former Detroit City players.
Also, will they learn swagger from anyone outside of Danny Evans? I don't think so.
No.
I just I do feel like that's a pretty special group. Dave and Danny and the assistants, that is a pretty special group. And if I was one of those women who had a tremendous experience this year, but had to keep interrupting it to go on Nationals duty, I'd say diversify a little bit, and maybe start to come into your sense of power as a player, because there's some talent on that team that will have power in the marketplace. You don't need to take every scrap every coach hands you. You're in control of your own destiny, women. You can get this.
Next episode, we're going to get closer and closer to MASLW. I believe the first away day is next weekend.
Yep.
There's a roster on the MASLW website, which I'm sure the club will announce shortly. Unfortunately, that'll be your teaser. We'll talk about it more.
Oh, shit. I didn't realize that. I've got some writing to do. Bye.
Yeah. Our buddy John Juice Grogan dropped that link in one of our circles. I'm sure the club will announce something soon. They've been announcing. Yeah. Lately. Gents, I think we've covered an immense amount of details today. We're going to leave people waiting because guess what? We can't talk about everything now, fuckers. Also, USL championship schedule looks to be close to probably being finalized within maybe hearing rumblings end of this coming week on there. We'll have an idea on teams and stuff. Adam dropped a good hit in Detroit City Sportscast, but we'll save it for when we know what actually is going to be the next time all of us here gather. Adam, you're good at plugging. I tend to have lapses. Ways they can check everything out here.
Check out TMS Next Detroit on every major social media platform, Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Discord. Check us out on YouTube as well, youtube.com/the Majors TV, and any major podcasting platform, Apple, Spotify. And again, we don't have any subscription services through this or anything like that. So if you want to support us, give us a 5-star review, leave us a review. It'll help us bump us up in that algorithm and get more eyes. Yeah. So Sean, go ahead.
Halfback talk, Sean.
Yeah, I'm shield chafing in email and on Blue Sky. I have a dead account on Twitter that I occasionally look at because I have lots of cat photos on. I have a feed full of cat photos, but that's the only reason I look at Twitter. So unless you're sending me cat photos, fuck off. The Blue Sky is where I'm, social mediaing these days, and it's shield chafing at whatever bsky dot whatever. I don't know how that shit works. I also do Words About Shapes. It's Patreon. I need to write more. I've got to. I've also got to run my daughter to work. So I'm
Sean,
go
check. Yeah, go check out that roster and then write why. So yeah.
Right. Well, right now I'm working on a piece called The Departed, which is basically just kind of going through the guys that aren't going to be here next year, which is a lot. Nate, Maxi, James, Brett, Elvis, Ali, Zeed, Victor, Danny, Laurent, Abdi. That's the guys who were rostered this year and will not be back. So anyway, be good.
Twitter, Instagram, Discord for me, GM Comatz, Discord, Blue Sky as well. TMSNX Adam for his stuff on here. Thank you all for checking this shit out. Another fun episode, great fun, good therapy session for me and some others on all that stuff. We got more to talk about, but not now. Until next time. See ya!
Bye.